Set? Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Edwards, Warshak, Correll,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
Marshall Snyder.
Here. It is hard to say. I've been told that. Mouthful of S's.
Yeah. You can play the pledge.
Okay, let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, move to the next agenda item. This is a citizens' time. Anybody who doesn't have a COA that they want to defend, just want to contribute any comments? No one out there? Okay, we'll move on to minute approval. We have January minutes.
This one appears from July 24th. Was that just left
This
over?
will be discussed in old business.
Okay.
The only one is what's on
On the packet.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve minutes for regular meeting, ARB regular meeting for January 15th, 2020.
Second?
Okay, got a motion and a second. Anybody have any discussion, corrections, or anything? Okay, we'll put it up for vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're good. Okay. Now we'll move on to the agenda items. Start off with ZP 2020-004.
Okay. On packet page 5, you will find my staff report for the application for 14884 Green Hill Crossing Drive. This is for a roof structure over the front door stoop. So you can see the assessment that was done on the application according to the zoning ordinance comp plan historic guidelines. And then if you flip to package page 8, I do recommend a approval for the application. The applicant has received their approval from the HOA and they've met all of the applicable requirements. In addition, the proposed addition on page 12 appears to fit nicely into the community. If you actually look at it, it looks like it's always been there based on their drawing that they did. So I think it's a very nice addition to the home, and I think it'll fit nicely within the community and the surrounding homes. So I'll ask the applicants to come up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Ms. Krug or Mr. Krug, whichever.
Just a feature we want to add to be able to have someone standing at the front door and not getting soaking wet while they're waiting for you to answer the door. So just took pictures of some different ones in the neighborhood that are already there, and just thought it would be nice. Since we're doing the addition on the back, we already have builders there, so I figured it was good timing to see if we could add it to the front.
I was going to ask, Mr. Chairman, look, this stoop is similarly featured in the neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
There's
I've
one
seen it before.
actually right across the street from us, on
Okay.
diagonal from us.
Cool.
Then there was one I understand that got added on St. Paul in the cul-de-sac. Theirs is much larger than ours, but they said that, my neighbor said that they had added theirs after the fact as well.
Thank you.
I didn't live there then, so I don't know.
Emily, thank you for the new guide. We'll talk about it later, but I appreciate the analysis. Mr. Chairman, I can move a motion.
Yep.
I move the board approves COA ZP 2024 for 14884 Green Hill Crossing Drive for a covering over the residence front stoop.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and second. Last chance for discussion.
No discussion? No discussion?
Okay. Let's put up for a vote then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go. Good luck with it.
All right, thank you.
I'll send you the zoning approval tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, next is agenda item 2020-005.
Okay, we are on packet page 17. So this application is for the addition of a waste management receptacle, I'm gonna call it a dumpster. So a dumpster for the QBE building. You'll have my assessment here. I do have some concerns regarding the material, if the board-on-board fence would hold up over time, especially with it being, that a truck is coming in and lifting the dumpster up, putting it back down. If there were any issues, if it were to be knocked or bumped, is it going to, is the fence gonna waver any? If something were to be caught, you know, is it gonna be sturdy long-term? And so I wanted the board to discuss the materials, however you'll see the rest of my assessment there in the packet, and then my recommendation is on page 21. I also wanted to discuss how there are some surrounding houses, so just to take into thought, are these residents going to be looking in at this dumpster? Are there other screening options that we could provide so that it is more harmonious with the surrounding neighborhoods and the field? So I have some suggestions there, and then if you continue to flip further, you will see the diagrams of where it's proposed, and that's clearly visible on page 26. It's highlighted in green, right where it says match sheet C3. And then Sean is here tonight to also discuss with us and answer any questions that you guys may have.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is, for us, we're addressing some challenges we have, some concerns. One being that we do have bear activity in the current dumpsters, and they're getting into our trash and pulling them all through the woods. So we need to bring it up. We're looking to solve one of the challenges we currently have. Second problem that we have is, as you're probably aware, that we just opened the new restaurant, and that is producing a significant amount of volume. So the volume right now, and the path for that volume is all the way down the road, around the building to the back. So they actually have to drag the trash all the way around the building, down the asphalt to the back of the property. So what happens is it piles up front into big trash bins and dumpsters, and by the end of the night, it's a mess. It's an eyesore, it's a mess. So we looked at a whole bunch of different options of how we can shorten the path of egress. Cookies and Creams also has the same challenge, that they have to bring all of their stuff around the back. All of that has caused a lot of grief. We have town events at the property. We have park and rec events at the property. There are no trash facilities on that side of the property. So we kind of looked at all the options and said, well, this kind of makes sense for us to put a facility here. We chose the board-on-board fence only because that's the same fence that was requested of us to put along the entire back of the property against the residential. So it kind of tied something in to that fence that's, 2,000 feet of fence that's going on the back of the property, something like that. I don't know how long it is, but it's long. And then up, we have a mix of materials on the property already. We got the masonry with the current building. We have the steel structure that we put with the awning that was changed and requested by the ARB. And we also have the historic building, which is a shingle wood building. So we've got a bunch of mix of materials already. We're also kind of, up against there's a cost factor in this as well. It's not cheap to build this stuff. So we're trying to figure out a way to solve these problems and do it economically while we can tie into things that have already been approved with the property.
One question, if the
Sure.
board doesn't mind. Was there any thought to, and I know currently right now the employees of Cookies and Cream park behind the building in the gravel. Is there any option that?
They do not park.
Okay, they don't. Is there any option that the dumpster could be angled right there, and it's a little more hidden from Washington Street visibility as well as Blight. It's a little closer with the building.
I looked at that first.
Okay.
The challenge that we have is you're going to have to so I have to do a concrete pad. That's where the gas lines and water lines are, and all the sewer lines. So for us to put a pad, we have a gas connection that's our primary gas that comes into the building. We have a T there with 3 lines. We have shut-off valves. So there's a lot of infrastructure right there.
Okay.
And, that was my first option, to put it there. It'd be easier for the driver, all of that. And when I looked at the infrastructure, unfortunately, it just doesn't. I just can't get that.
Okay.
If I tilted it to the left a little bit, the problem is we're going to have the truck kind of going back and forth. So we're going to have the truck driving forward, beep, 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 going back, all that, trying to make that turn. That's just not going to be nice for any of us. We just want him to drive straight in, grab the trash, and depart. So we've kind of looked at all the different areas in the property of where it might make most sense to put this. I think we picked the most desirable that will maintain a long-term footprint in all of the visions and all the plans that I have in the property. I'm willing to look at different colors, stains, screening options. If we want to do some trees around, if we want to have some discussion, I really am trying to figure out a cost feasible way of doing this. Some way that I can solve this problem quickly and something that's going to look decent. Maybe we can look at, how I can continue to, better it over time. Would be great.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Is there an option maybe for the board to discuss with the applicant if the vinyl fence look or what's the product name? It's not Trex, but there's something, maybe it's the vinyl fence look that has a wood grain feel to it. If something in a blue color that matches the cookies and cream building, if something like that's an option, maybe to discuss different material.
Yeah, my 2 concerns are location. It's kind of sitting out there in the open as its own little facility, so to speak. It integrates. It has to. So we would want something, since it looks like a standalone structure, that would integrate with the surrounding areas, such as the Craftsman home for cookies and cream, as well as the homes on Blight, since it's close to Blight. Plus, my concern also is just whether wood is a strong enough element to handle an industrial environment, so to speak. Because I don't want you to see this breaking down left and right because, the trash men just threw the dumpster in there real quick or lifted it up too fast and snagged onto something and the wood's just shattering everywhere. So there are concerns with that. But I'm also concerned with, recommending, well, let's see about doing something in concrete, using CMU type of block, which is one of the cheaper blocks out there, because of the elements of the Craftsman house and stuff like that. So, there's a big dilemma going on here, and I really wish we had an architect or someone who has experience with industrial architecting to determine whether wood is appropriate or not for this. But so those are the concerns that I see. I don't know if you guys want to comment on it.
I mean, for me, the concern was, I think the wood, like you said, I don't know how strong, how much of it could really withstand for how long. I think that's the biggest concern for, like you said, having to constantly, it being broken, having to go back and fix it, and then this, that, and the other. Like, that and the location, but considering you said you've looked at other areas within the property to place it that's at least somewhat close to the building for them to use. Still kind of looking around, trying to see where you can really place it.
If you look at the property and the road
Yeah.
access, there's just no
There's really not a
other
lot of options.
option that makes sense. We did add space So we are proposing 3 feet on the sides of the dumpster to provide that extra area for them to lift and dump without hitting the sides. So we did increase the platform to make sure that there was room for, not just them, but so we're looking at 2 units in there, one for trash and one for recycling and cardboard. We found right now, we only have trash. We don't have a lot of volume of recycling. The restaurant we found is, I mean, their production is almost 70 to 80% cardboard. So we're talking about, you know, a dumpster of trash volume and one of cardboard. So, you know, it's 2 different facilities, but it'll be in there. We have a little, you know, that space that we've added around to provide that gap in order to be able to get in, empty, manage, you know, a clean environment.
And also, I guess to confirm, this is strictly for a standard trash dumpster. This isn't going to be for like any type of grease traps or anything like that, right?
No, these are two of the standard, I forget how many yards.
6 inches, and 6.
Yeah, they're the standard ones we have. Yeah, with the 2 lids in the front, you know, on the front of them, the top of them.
So will you have a grease one on the other side?
In the back.
That'll remain over there?
That'll
If
remain
you
in the back.
need it? Okay.
Correct. So we'll maintain 1 unit in the back, 2 units in the front. The 2 largest producers of trash on the property right now are Cookies and Cream and now Zandra's. We're looking to add a 3rd restaurant right next to Zandra's, so that whole front is just going to be producing. It's going to be a madhouse trying to get all of that trash out back. We've got to solve the problem. We can't do anything, obviously, from the road up to the building, because then you've got dumpsters up against the building. And any other way, we've got an access issue with getting a truck in to dump and relieve the facility. We're looking to, so we've increased right now, we do 2 a week, and we're looking at do 3 a week to make sure that there's no buildup of refuse in there. So we'll maintain that on a constant basis to make sure that it's empty.
I do.
Is there an option for the area in the back where the gravel was that an option at all in the back of the curve?
Well, so you're looking at them having to haul that trash all the way around the building still. So we've eliminated probably a 1/3 of their travel. It's still, you know, what happens is if we make it too difficult, that trash is building in the front of the restaurant. And when I come in the morning, I see trash in the front, I don't get excited, nobody gets excited, we're gonna start seeing you know, animal activities, because, you know, it's 1 o'clock at night, they gotta clean, they gotta do all that, and if they gotta haul this stuff a mile down the road, nobody wants to do that. We gotta make it easy, and the whole facility will respond. It'll be much more clean than if we make it too difficult.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of thoughts. So first of all, I wanted to disclose for the record that Mr. Landry and I are friends, and we tend to socialize quite a bit, and I do tend to help out, or do help out with multiple projects at the property. So I will abstain from my vote this evening, but still feel like I can contribute to the conversation. Mr. Landry did mention, before he submitted his application, looking at a masonry, and I had brought up a similar conversation about having could we put it behind the Cookies and Cream? I would agree with Emily that if it was closer, had some clear relationship to the building, then masonry would be appropriate. Having, in kind of to your point of being isolated and really serving the property, not just one structure, it would make sense to be of a different material. Were you still planning to do the paddock fencing along one of your prior applications? You had kind of the brown, low, dark stain with the pillars along the side?
I don't know. So a lot of things we've kind of pushed forward with the county. They seem to not want to invest in any of the pieces that their part of the property delivers. So I don't know where they stand on building that. I'm not planning on building it out. So if they don't build it out, then I don't see anything unless that is really back to us, and then we'll come to you with a plan for how that would. result.
So the initial thinking was maybe matching that materials. What came to mind, looking through the materials, is maybe doing some significant 6x6 posts, have that be the four corners, being 25 feet along the back, do some substantial columns along the back. And then looking at page 23 on our enclosures and the design guidelines, you see mostly the, I think it's Chick-fil-A, CVS, and something else, but more having the kind of the solid panels between those main posts on the sides and along the back. Having it a darker stain, maybe not quite as dark as the paddock fencing that you had proposed, but something that's a darker stain, maybe as dark as the cookies and cream. And then along the front, how do you intend to hang the doors? You want to put them on metal posts?
Yeah, we have large 6-inch steel posts that we'd put in the ground, paint them black to match a black iron for a fence that basically a very simple but blocking, fence, two fence structure.
So, so black, painted black, or some other structure. So that's set far back from the road. It's going to be noticeable, but somewhat harder to see. You'll see it more from Blight. The reason why you can't go on where the playground used to be is your parking lot's going out that way, and the entrance is going out that way. That was when maybe you orient it so that the doors face the main building and the back faces Blight. They're having to do it on the side. And then doing some sort of evergreen screen. Emily, what's the plants we have out here by the AC vents, by the old post office?
They're like a laurel, but I'll
Laurel?
look it up.
Some sort of kind of dense,
Or a mountain laurels out there.
there's some sort of hardy evergreen that kind of grows fast and just kind of hide it in plain sight. But I would recommend a more detailed drawing that shows where the larger posts would be. My recommendation would be the kind of the single panels in between, but more of the tight board on board, not board on board, but boards next to each other rather than the board on board. The board on board would allow for some circulation. I realize they approved it along the back, but as you're driving along board on board, you can still see in. So if they're stacking things behind which, if they have some extra trash that they have to stack behind the dumpster, you're not gonna be able to see it. If it means bringing it off the ground a little bit to allow some air circulation underneath, and maybe that's what, you raise it off the ground. But again, would be kind of the 6 posts, panels between, painted some darker stain, 8 feet in height is what you're doing? 8 feet in height, and then, the doors fastened to some sort of pole that's painted a darker color, and then there'll be 2 panel doors with, are you gonna have some sort of way to latch them?
Yeah, they have pins on them, so hold them closed.
Looking at the pictures on 23, are you gonna need bollards, since it'll be pretty close to the parking lot? Do you think you'll need to put bollards in?
No, because the parking lot has this weird paving diagonal, so it'll actually sit back quite a ways from the
Can I
parking.
show what we're talking about? These were kind of to keep the, and we're talking about the ones to keep the
Yeah,
trucks
the
from
yellow
hitting them, a
ones
lot of
there.
these.
Yeah.
Didn't know if they'd be needed, and if so, if you wanted to, just in case,
Well,
add 'em.
So those bollards are about the same size as the posts we're gonna use for the fence. So they're, 6 inches, already 6-inch steel pipes that come up, that will house the door, hold the doors, the steel doors. Steel doors are heavy, so you look at those in there, those photos, those really don't, if you look at the corner structures, other than the one that's masonry, the other ones that are not masonry, they don't have enough, really, in my opinion, to hold a heavy steel door. So that's why we use it. It's like that bollard, but it's almost 6 to 7 feet tall, concrete into the ground to hold that steel door.
Yep, and I guess, how high would this fence be?
8 feet.
8 feet?
To make sure that we can cover and, hide the entire, we measured the bins that will be in there. So we want to make sure if the doors were open or whatever's inside there would be completely hidden. And we would support that, whether it's, I know we said board on board, but if it's flush board all the way around, we would support that. We would support whichever color. If we wanted to do a dark brown to match the brown of the building, still being wood, that would tie into cookies and cream, or if we wanted to do more of the blue gray that matches cookies and cream. I mean, the color to me is really, it's irrelevant. I'm more of a functional person. So if you guys tell me what you wanted, we love the idea of the screening. No problem with adding a significant amount of greenery screening to do that, to cover that.
No.
One idea that you guys could go with is, you know, on some of our fences in town, kind of to go with that craftsman style, they have the X in the fence or the gate. Are you guys familiar with that?
It's almost like a piece of 1x2 that's kind of set in and give it a lattice.
Yeah, it's set in and it kind of forms the X on top of the board on board. You know, that might give it some visual interest without making it look just like a board on board. And then with one row of tall shrubs in front of it, then you have a little depth to it. It looks, you know, appealing. It could be stained, and it's not just your typical board on board.
Yeah, I'd definitely recommend not board on board in the traditional sense, but maybe a solid
Flush board.
kind of
Flush
the
board.
term, architectural term. But I'm gonna draw it real quick. So some like a,
I'm not understanding the
Marshawn,
visual.
are you drawing the visual X?
I'm gonna
for
try
us?
to,
Kind of
Are you
like
being
cross
our
members for,
so it's kind of like you have, you know, you kind of your 6x6 posts, a panel in between, maybe 6-inch panels, so it's 10 feet on one side. So maybe it's 2 5-foot panels in between the 6x6s, and then you're talking about, Emily, having some sort of feature over that.
Yeah, let me look up that.
It's like,
Are you talking
Yes,
about like
like
a
that.
single cross or like
Yeah.
a whole, like
No,
lattice?
no, just like a single, if
Oh.
it's a square, just like.
Just
from
a
corner to
something for
corner.
dimension.
Something to give it a little.
overlaid on top.
Which I would agree, given the craftsman behind it, kind of that touch would distinguish it, but,
yeah.
and then having the houses on Blight Drive, you can try to give it some architectural interest, is what you're talking about, so.
And you're not talking about something like this with a board on board, right? This isn't structural enough, right? You're thinking of like having some type of 2x4 block here and having like deck wood.
Yeah, so like this, see how
Yeah.
closely spaced that is, but not, this is the flex, not the flex, that's the decking,
Yeah.
not that, but be the wood that close together, but on a durable wooden frame that's posted between the two 6x6s. So that way, another thing was wind. I mean, if you have those strong 6x6s, you have the wind blowing against those panels, there'll be something strong in the corner.
Imagine that. Anything the same color, yeah.
So, and then,
Yeah, and, yeah, I think the darker brown stain would be better than the black. I think that the brown blends in better with the blues and what's existing on the
building.
main building.
I mean, the blue, you almost lose cookies and cream when you drive by because of that light blue.
Yeah.
You almost lose it sometimes because it's so far back. So the downside to a really dark color is it's going to stand out, so maybe a lighter stain.
Yeah,
Or just let it
darker-
naturally,
Or a darker brown, not the black stuff that, you get in the 110-gallon cubes that you spray on the farm fences, not that dark black stuff.
you know, the black stuff that's over the vestibule right now, not so.
Yeah, not that dark, yeah, but a brownish color.
So this is over exaggerated, but if these are the two doors with the iron posts, you'd have kind of the 6x6s with the solid panels in between, framing on the inside, and then have your two swing doors kind of out front.
That's exactly what we're thinking.
In the 6x6s, you'll have the concrete pad, or are you gonna put the, what do you call them, the fasteners, like the hang fasteners, or are you gonna drop the,
Oh, we're gonna drop the 6x6s in the ground with some concrete around them.
okay.
For
What do you
the
think?
landscaping options, just so you guys know, there's, on our evergreen shrubs, we have the English yew, Japanese yew, azalea, Chinese holly, Japanese holly, rhododendron, and then a double file viburnum. So what would be out there around the AC unit in our parking lot would most likely be a rhododendron that's just many years old.
So I guess the idea wouldn't be to grow, my suggesting the evergreen would not to be grow 20 feet tall, but something more of a shrub that's low, kind of like the rhododendron where you can cut it back.
Yeah,
I don't know that we would want to grow it 8 feet high with something that just breaks up the,
yeah, I think a max of 6 feet would be fine.
What would be nice is if we can use the approved plants, and what we'll do is create a stage, right? So you have a higher plant in the back. You have something that comes out, so it's not grass and then a wall of something. So we can bring the elevation of the plantings out a little bit, add some color in there and have really the evergreen up against to kind of hide it, but, add some, structure to the landscaping.
Yeah, I mean, you could use the same type of concept we used at the sheets around
Exactly
the
right.
Yes.
Tesla.
Yep, that's exactly right.
only you think would be like on, do we think would be on 3 sides or just the side facing Blight?
All 3 sides. I would
All 3
recommend.
sides?
I would
Okay.
do all 3 sides.
Okay.
Yeah, that way you got
You
the
got your
townhouses
Alexander's
behind it,
play,
they're shielded.
and then the kids play.
And even people sitting outside Cookies and Cream aren't gonna wanna look at trash,
Yeah.
right? So we'll do the inner side, the back side, I mean, landscape it all to make it look professional.
Okay, we got a concept here, but it's kind of tough to vote on something on what's in our minds. How can we solidify this?
Why don't we
Please.
take just a couple minutes, write down what you guys think was just agreed upon, and then make that within the motion, and you guys can vote on it that way.
I have a parliamentarian question. With
Okay.
me abstaining, do we have enough votes?
So that's where, well, we'd probably just switch it to a roll call vote, and then this way you would abstain. I'll verify with the town attorney next week, and if there's any issues, we can come back and revisit it.
Okay.
And then, I would like to request in our discussion, maybe if you just wanna offer, Sean, if you're gonna do like 3 series of landscaping things or something.
Yeah,
so
3
we can
tier.
Put that in. But we can take just a couple minutes, square that away, and then do a vote on it. If that works.
I mean, I'll throw out there that we can do a tiered, if we call it tiered, 2 or 3 tiered landscaping with town-approved plantings, we'll support that, absolutely. And, something to reference even the Tesla,
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
we got the layout for the Tesla stuff. I'm sure you can give them that as a reference.
Yeah,
So Chairman, if you want to go into recess for just a minute, so Emily and the applicant, you all can get together and write out this motion that we'll need to do, and we can come back and make that
Okay,
motion.
yeah, we'll make this a 5-minute recess.
thank you.
Got my gavel. Call this meeting to order again.
So in our recess, we determined the appropriate motion for the application that we are currently discussing for QBE. So I move to approve a dumpster enclosure structure at 14600 Washington Street. The structure will be comprised of solid board screening with flush boards. The panels will have a cross-hatch detail, 1 per panel. The panel shall be no larger than 5 feet. Posts will be between paneling, and each post will be 6 inches by 6 inches. Panels are 6 inches off of the ground. Each post will have a cap on top that it will be black in color. Wood will be stained dark brown to match the accents on the current structures. The door for the enclosure will be a steel frame door set with wood. Everything will sit on top of a concrete pad, and there will be a 3-tiered landscaping plan that will be installed on the 3 sides of the enclosure except for the doors, and this will be planted in the springtime and maintained for the life of the structure.
And one thing to add, the total height of the fence will be 8 feet.
And total height of the
Nice.
fence will be 8 feet.
So moved?
Okay. I got a motion? I guess I get to second it, huh? You want to stay totally abstained, okay. I'll second the motion. Okay, last chance for discussion. Anybody else? I think we hit all the details. Okay, we'll put it up for a vote. Since we are limited here, I'd prefer this to be a roll call vote.
Correll,
Yes.
Thurston,
Yes?
Schneider.
Abstain.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank you for the recommendation you all made for the awning outside Zandra's. I think that facade, the facility turned out beautiful. It's, everybody compliments it. It fits a property much better than what we were talking about with the original fabric type of awning. We're looking to continue that, to the next restaurant. So I commend you. It was great foresight, and I appreciate your work there.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing new business in.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
I'll send you an email tomorrow about everything. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now that we're done with the COAs, we'll move on to new business.
I have a couple items I do want to mention so you guys can start preparing for them and maybe do a little research on your own. I did have 2 applications tonight that were going to come to the board, however, had to be pulled due to the applicants not having everything complete. One of them is Ash Salon will be coming in for their new sign application. So just as you're in and around the area, take a look at the front of her building. She's asking to move her previous sign over from her old space to her new space. She is trying to work with it and adapt it to how it will work on that structure. So we're still waiting to hear back from the property owner on that one, but that'll be coming up in March. And then the second one that I would like you guys to drive back or go visit and be ready for is the Iceplex is going to come in for signage. They're going to do a whole sign package. It will be signage on Washington Street, signage as you approach, and then signage on the front door where you enter the new facility, and then signage on the old facility directing you to the front. So I'm going to be having another meeting with that manager tomorrow to nail some more things down with him, but just so you guys are familiar with everything back there, if you'll take a drive back. Also take into account when you're sitting on Washington Street at Costello, one of their goals is to have signage that is large and visible from Washington Street. So just kind of keep that eyesight in mind when you go visit.
Only with the Ash sign, is Ms. Contrucci going to switch it out from the parking lot?
So we're still, I did follow up with the business owner, Ashley, and ask her when the one would be removed that she put up and when the one that PEG has received approval for would be going up. She stated that to date, PEG has not informed her when it's coming down and it'll be changed, but I do know they continue to plan to make the change. There's just not a date currently.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll follow back up directly with PEG on that one.
I just imagine that might come up when she brings her other signs in.
Yes, absolutely. The other item for new business, so last night, this is a little bit of the planning commission update for you guys. So we had a planning commission work session on the comp plan last night, and we discussed part of our priorities, but also some of the layout. And in the discussion, we started talking about the historic resources section. So before I go too far, we would like to plan a planning commission ARB joint work session for March. I have some dates proposed, and I also wanted to give a comprehensive plan assignment to the board. I know we need to look at updating our resources list. I wanted to have the board consider adding back and making sure that all of the buildings that were considered historic and demolished are accurately documented on that list, and then we can give a status of, has been demolished, and if we know the year, we could put that. And then we also wanted to look through the entire historic resources chapter itself with the Planning Commission. Some of their questions are what makes this structure in our town truly historic, and the 50-year rule. They wanted to discuss that, so that gets you guys started. That's some of their discussion. Ken was actually there last night, and if you want to add any more to that, what you heard, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think the major concern is, with the planning commission is that they feel we're the experts on the historic piece, since we are the stewards of it. So they would like us to take control of the historic section of that and edit it and review it as needed. Come up with a better definition of what the criteria is to deem a property historic. And
Didn't Martin have a suggestion on calling it like, he suggested a term one time. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but anyway, I'll try to go.
Yeah, well,
Some language
you're
to
right,
that.
he did mention something in one of our trainings, or.
Something of significance, or I can't remember.
maybe
Seemed to be
he
a better
said, like,
term.
historical significance. We'll ask him.
Thank you.
I know he works a lot with the city of Manassas and some of the other local jurisdictions on like how they have their historic wording done, so.
It seemed to better capture,
Yeah, he had some
What-
specific term.
yeah. it seemed to better capture what we were trying to do.
yeah,
And so with that, the one date that works the best for the planning commission, if you guys have your calendars ready. Let me get the right month. The 23rd of March was the preferred date, if that is possible, at 6 p.m. The other backup dates are the 9th, the 10th, or the 16th. If none of these work, please let me know, and we will try to work something out to better accommodate.
23rd's preferable for me.
Okay?
That's the Monday, right?
Yes, that's the fourth Monday of the month. That gives you guys a little bit more time to talk about it. We'll have one meeting again before that. I can do a little reminder for some long weekend homework, but that would be good. 6.
yep.
So you're look-
23rd's good with
Okay.
me.
So we have at least 3, so I will send the 23rd at 6 to Susan and Julia and see if they are able to also attend that work session. And I'll also send out the homework assignment via email so that you guys have it.
Was to look at the resources table, look through the historic resources chapter, look
Yes.
at definitions for the 50, or the designation of what's historic.
Yes.
And then, do you want us to also look at the objectives and goals section in the back?
Let's start with the small section right now. I know that you guys will be a lot more involved with the update as we continue to move forward. We just talked about, and the reason this came up to kind of give a little backstory, and feel free to watch the video as well. So when we were talking about priorities, one of the first things that Chairman Cottle wanted to do is talk about what are the top concerns he always hears from our applicants and our citizens. And two of those were, one, does this fit in our town? So is this a type of business or a type of structure or a type of development we want to see? And 2, is it historic? And so they were hoping that with this chapter update, they could get a better read on the board's feelings for what is a historic building, what is a historic structure, landscape, and then how they can best articulate that to their applicants and best serve the comp plan.
Appreciate
So, a long answer to your short question. Let's just start there with that first chapter, but ultimately, yes, we will have you guys looking at objectives and goals and the long-term portion of it as well.
I think that makes sense, because you have to come up with the language first before you
Yes.
translate to your objectives and goals. Good point. Biting off more than we can chew.
And it will probably take more than a meeting, so just, we'll do our best on the 23rd to get as much done as we can, but hopefully you guys will be prepared and ready to have another work session, whether it be just us working on it and then taking it back to them in a couple months for a joint or another joint one.
Yeah, and one thing to make note, one of the biggest questions that came out was the 50-year rule. And Dottie was there last night too, and she was one of the, original contributors to the comp plan. And their concept was that 50-year rule was placed at the time of writing, so they were looking at anything past 1944 as their time frame. So that 50-year rule shouldn't be continually sliding. That should have just been anything after or anything before 1944 in the original author's viewpoint. So, you know, we can take that into...
1944. So from before 1944, so anything past 1944, we shouldn't be looking at in the same viewpoint as the original author's intent?
That was how, yeah, that was
That's
how it
how-
was
how it was
described.
described. But, you know, we can go deeper into it in our work session. For instance, for me,
Absolutely.
I like that to be the first checkpoint. First thing you say is it 50 years old? Yes. Okay, let's step back. Is there anything historic about it? And then we can, you know, so it might just be a criteria of, does this initiate looking deeper into because it is 50 years old or something like that? So, you know, we got a lot to discuss and come up with.
And one of the other things I was going to mention is maybe we also look at, I know we've so often used, is it 50 years old or older? But maybe a better way to start addressing it is if a older structure comes in, maybe we define what era it's from and the year, because then you know it's old, but when you can tag it into, and I don't know the exact name of the era, maybe Marchant does.
Well,
but-
that's what Martin, I think, was pointing to, was it,
Yeah, because like for the Lewis home at the park, so that was a mail order home, and you know it's not as old as our museum or our old post office, but it has a very significant history behind it because you don't order a home out of a catalog anymore. So you know that does have a lot of context and history behind it. So if we can say it came from this era and this is something you would see traditionally in this area during this time period, that's when I think it has more standing than, yes, it's 50 years old. So I think if we can do a better job, and maybe that's part of creating a new demolition application or a new COA, or better research is saying that first checkbox, you know, is what era is it actually from, and when's the original construction date, or when is the addition construction date, so we can get a little more information just up front. And then also that helps you guys in your findings, whether it be for approvals, denials, what have you. You can say, you know, this structure came about in this era, and thus during that time period, here's what you had going on. And it better explains why maybe it looked the way it did, why they used the materials they did, why maybe they still didn't have indoor plumbing, you know, those types of things.
I think the second qualifier for us is also its significance to the town. I think that's something we need to really take a look at, because for a lot of these buildings, you know, they're old, and just because they've been there for a long time doesn't necessarily mean they're significant to the town. Like architecturally, it's something that we can look at and address, kind of like to Emily's point. But I think the second one that should be just supported is the significance to American history as well as like the town's history.
Something just to share on that note, since our last meeting, when I had to go back and look up with the Prince William County Department of Historic Resources, the details for the home structure. So we didn't find much on the barn, but it was shared, and I don't know if we already discussed this, but it was shared that they originally thought that that house was for the teachers of the high school and the other school. And so, you know, it's interesting how in our records here, we don't always have all of that, but then when you can reach out to the library, you get another layer of it. So the best we can, continuing to document all of that and do as much research as we can.
I would agree with the era distinction, because, you know, we burned during the Civil War. We do not have a lot of significant, people say you're not national, you're not local. These buildings contribute to the local context or vernacular. So you know, we have this, the Ramblers of the 50s. We have the mail orders. We have the post-World War II. I mean, we can describe them in those blocks. It's those, you know, I like to see even the ugly buildings are tell the story of the town.
Yeah.
Visual interest. So
Right.
I agree with you that if we categorize it that way, it tells more about, it's not a person, place, or thing per se, it's more of a indicative of the architecture that, what influenced that time of our history. That makes sense? So-
And that also helps with if someone's going to develop on the property, if they're interested in developing the property, maybe they could get approval for demolition as long as they really lean hard into that style. You know, if it's one of those post-World War II homes where it's not going to be able to be rehab, but they want to rebuild, well, if they're going to start leaning towards that, you're going to make it look very similar. You know what I'm, so then that way the town continues to look the way that the ARB wants it to look, and like Chairman Cottle's talking about, like then it fits into Haymarket. It's, you know, it's getting, if something comes down, it's coming up with something similar or something that would just fit inside the town with those different errors and things like that, so.
Not eclectic, but
Yeah.
variety, diversity of architectural styles. So, sounds good.
Lots to think about.
Yep.
That's all I have for new business.
The one new business I had was the staff report that Emily did. Thumbs up, thumbs down, how'd you like it? What was, I'll admit, I forgot to bring it up at the town council meeting for the forms. Vice Mayor wasn't there, and I forgot to bring up editing the forms, because that's something that we gotta take to council to get approval to update forms, but she was able to do this staff report, which articulates everything that she really goes through, so.
I think it was fantastic. I think it was very detailed, and I was able to kind of see the justification for why the staff wanted to either approve or deny or table. And that's really helpful because, you know, you guys, I think, go into it far more than we tend to.
Thank you. So one of the things I tried to articulate here was, this is the thought process with every application, so I was just trying to show you guys what I go through and think through to get to the verdict. So if it is all right, I would like to continue to just this exact template for every application, treat them all equally, give as much detail where I can, where I need more, ask the applicants for more. I did want to just call to attention, and I know it's going to get repetitive on these applications, but when you kind of get into the guidelines, you see that a lot of them are not applicable. I can leave them blank there, but I just want you guys to know that, I mean, truly, they're not applicable to talk about a chimney when it's a sign, so I know it does get repetitive. And then there were just a few that, on, like, for example, page 6, on section 58-14.9 and 14.98, these items were just items that I really felt were at the discretion of the board, if this was a deciding factor or not for the application. And so, going forward, of course, depending on the application, but going forward, it most likely will stay that those two are at the discretion of the board, if that is okay and amenable.
I think it's fine. I mean, where you feel, based on the knowledge or experience that you have, that it, case by case basis, 'cause I noticed like like on the one for the thing you had added on like the resource inventory list. However, according to MAPR, the
Right.
structure was built in 1935, so you're able to add those details as if there's something unique or notable.
And I think that was something also, I mean, I think it also helps us with, you know, hey, we don't have QE on the resource list, and so maybe it is something, depending on how we define it at our work session. So I think it helps catch a couple of those housekeeping items as well.
Right. Is it worth adding in the 50-year designation, the 58-14-4, where those that are 50 years or older? That's kind of the early part of the criteria. I think it's like right after the preamble to the district.
Say the section again, please.
58-14.4, small letter A. This is where they call out the 50 years. Those buildings that are 50 years or older, is it worth adding that as just kind of a checkpoint?
That's part of the zoning ordinance.
That's in the,
It would be if it's 58-14. Hang on one second.
Yeah.
Navigating
says
there.
all buildings in the overlay which are 50 years or older are designated historic buildings. So just kind of that checkpoint, I noticed we had it referenced as when it was, but we didn't necessarily have and you mentioned it in your recommendation. The school structure was built in 35, that's considered historic by the town standards. But just adding that maybe to your,
So you just
So-
prefer a yes or no versus the, like how she detailed it?
I
That's
think,
the only thing, if she puts it in the checkbox, then it's gonna basically be like, is it older than 50 years? Yes or no, and that's all.
so Marshawn, I think what I was thinking it was that section 58-14.4 was a little bit more along the lines of explaining why you would need a COA or in
Okay.
what cases.
Okay.
And so what I did here is section on the page 5 of the application, packet,
Okay.
58-14.9, the very first one. Matters to be considered by the board in acting on appropriateness of erection, reconstruction, alteration, restoration, or demolition. I think what I was originally thinking was simplifying 14.4 and that it also tied in with 14.9. But I do see if you want the 50 years or older.
I mean, what do you guys think? Just some sort of setting it off to say, hey, it's within this range, or,
I wouldn't want to restrict it and an applicant or future applicant say, mine's not 50 years old or older, so it doesn't matter.
okay,
Or, yeah, I wouldn't want our hands tied later,
okay,
whereas if I say, like, the comprehensive plan, it is or is not on the list, it should be considered to be added.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Maybe based
Yeah.
on how we define it, in the comp plan, that could change it, and we can think through that of how do we define it so we can put it in the assessment, and maybe it's just what era is the building from.
Good point, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I'm happy to add, for this sake, I'm happy to put, so see where it says application summary above the table? We can add in there, like, date of construction.
Perfect, I think that'd be great.
Okay.
What do you got, I'm sorry, what does the group think, consensus of the group?
Because at least that way you know what era are you looking for front door stoop. Should it look like something from the 90s, the 2000s, the 2020s? You know, not that those are all wildly
Green-
different.
Green Hill 80s, Green Hill Crossing,
Exactly. So I will
Mm.
add,
Era
Wall Street,
style, right?
88.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'll add the date of the build, or the year it was built.
Thanks to both of you for doing this. I think particularly where an applicant may be wanting to challenge, where is this coming from? Why am I being asked to do this? Consistently applied, I think helps, so thank you.
Oh, what I was gonna say is I'm gonna use this assessment and put it in our new form, even if it's just as an appendix for reference of a checklist, so the applicant knows exactly what their application will be judged on, if you wanna call it that. Assessed is a better word, assessed. So, we'll work on a new form update and take that to council for discussion.
That was actually another question of mine. Do you all feel that we still need to update the forms with this staff report being as complete as it is?
Other than, does the ordinance still require, you gotta turn in 5 copies of the plat, you gotta do this, you gotta do that for zoning permits? I don't remember if that's still in there or not.
For zoning permits, no, for site plans, yes.
Okay.
Really, I think if you look at one of the applications, and we have some here in the packet, what happens is I get an application, like, we'll use the CRUDs for example, 9 and 10. So our application that goes out the door is 5 pages. It's this front, it's a back with a signature, it's a checklist, it's a sign page, and it's a frequently asked questions for how to appropriately
when you and I talked about this before, just for disclosure, I came up with this form back in the day, but it was meant as when the other staff was handling a lot of this, it was meant to consolidate and be efficient, but we've gotten beyond that. So I would agree that the multi-use form is not really appropriate anymore. You know, we do have the check mark for specification sheet and photographs, but that's buried at the bottom of the page. So a checklist that's very clear, these are the elements, and you don't, I guess the point would be with that is if they don't submit it completely, then you don't accept it?
Right.
Okay.
So this is my question where I was getting to is if you all like how Emily's doing the staff report and the application is no longer really giving you information, I would almost prefer Emily be able to cater the form to what she needs to better fill out the staff report, if you all are okay with that. So that way, if she can cater it and she can get the information she needs so she can provide that staff report that really gives you the substantive information that you all need, and in that way we can just really move forward if you all are okay with it.
Yeah.
So I'll work on something that's gonna fix assessment.
Thank you.
Now that's all I have for new business.
When we talk about this?
I think it's old.
That will be old business.
So for old business, you guys have the bylaws in the back. So very simplistically, all I did based on the bylaws that I brought to you guys last month and the month prior, we talked about having an appendix for a couple sections. So what I've done here, give me just a second to get there, packet page 33, I literally just copy pasted our membership from inside Article 2 and I placed it as Appendix 1 right there. So there was a discussion of we didn't need the whole membership article in the actual bylaws because it's referenced in the zoning ordinance. The board was concerned about it not being there at all. So we agreed upon having it as an appendix. So I literally just copied and pasted it there. Then your second appendix is appendix number 2 on page 34. I pasted in our current historic resources table. Again, this is something we'll just have to remember when other documents are updated to come back and update this one as well. And then appendix 3, again, I just, for the sake of keeping it very simple, I copied and pasted our zoning ordinance section 58-14 into the back. So you'll have all of those references. It does get repetitive. It is an appendix, so I think that's okay. It gives a little more information, gives a little more detail. It goes back through what a COA is and what you're looking at in a COA. It goes through right of appeal, deterioration of neglect, issuing a COA. So, and we can, certainly I know we are down 2 members tonight. As long as you're okay with it. I'm okay if we wait until they can be present and we have a full board to do a final vote on it. So everyone has a little more time to read through it.
Hello. Sorry. Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of quick questions. Thank you for getting this done. On packet page 30, there was, looked like Martin had added under Article 6 meetings. It says unless the council establishes a different date for some or all of the board's meetings. That's, it cites the VA code section. Was that added later, or was that in the last time, or was this added on? Let me first by saying, I don't have an issue with it. I went and read the code section. But was it, the code section says, so as to prevent conflict with other meetings. So it's not so much that the council is going to dictate. We have this up in Loudon sometimes where the board rules. So if we try to schedule a date on their date, they trump us. So that's the only suggestion I had, was to say after the board meetings, add the language from the state code which says so as to prevent conflict with other meetings of the council or something like that. Just so it's clear why they would be establishing a different date. Any thoughts on that?
Read that again, so as to prevent.
when you look up the code section, the last part of it says, so as to prevent conflict with other meetings. And I would just, other meetings, in this case, I would say of the council. Unless the council, basically would read, unless the council establishes a different date for some or all of the board's meetings so as to prevent conflict with other meetings of the board, or the council, I mean. Does that make sense? Okay. Man, we've beat this a dead horse, huh? With the addendums with the appendix, so we talk about Article 10, which refers to our architectural design guidelines. In that, we refer to the design policies, right? The central
Sorry. It's been a long day.
planned interchange park, all those different
Yes.
design so do we feel comfortable that's covered here? So if someone says these are architectural guidelines and they go and read them, they'll know the design guidelines that dictate our architectural styles. Does that make sense what I'm asking? Unless in the foreseeable future, so right now we take the language from the comp plan and we stick it in the guidelines. Do we want to just say architectural guidelines and then just say, and other, I can't remember if we say other applicable documents, the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance is cited at the beginning of the bylaws, right?
Other applicable documents, I think, would work. And this way, what it allows is, if for whatever reason the architectural guidelines, while doing like the comp plan and finishing the bylaws, y'all get the bug and want to update the architectural guidelines, then it kind of, most of these documents are fluid. They're meant to be updated as time goes on. So this way, I think architectural guidelines and applicable documents, I think that way, as we move forward, it'll encompass everything.
And the point being, pointing to the appendix. So right now, I realize we have appendix, but nowhere in the body of the document do we reference the appendices. So maybe in Article 10, we say design guidelines, and then some additional line that says, and the other documents as referenced in the appendices, or something like that. What do you think?
I don't think it's necessary. If someone's
Okay.
looking at it, it's part of the entire document.
Okay.
It's not, if it was completely separate and it was like an attachment that we put on the back, like we had the bylaws and then it was like an appendix was like a separate document, then maybe I could see, all right, let's reference it in the document so people know to go from here to this appendix and read it. But since it's all going to be in one document, one electronic file, if they just continue to read, they'll see, I'm in the appendix where it's.
These should apply to the thinking of the ARB. Okay.
The only thing that I could suggest is maybe we explain in like the addenda, like in the appendix when we begin, just say this appendix is to compile the town code, comprehensive plan, and whatever is referenced, and just say to help have one like complete document explaining like the ARB. So maybe we'll add a little section here like to start the appendix.
Yeah,
So that
kind
way
of a
it just
preamble in
explains
the
why
addendum?
it's there. Yeah, like a preface just to say like this is why we have the appendix in here. And then, we've discussed it enough, so we can have that, so by the next meeting, we'll be able to, like a one paragraph, this is why we're having the appendix, and this is what it includes. And then I think that's all we really need to wrap
Thank you.
it up.
That's along the lines of what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And then with the Appendix 1 membership, do we want to cite the zoning ordinance section? Because we're not repeating it in the Appendix 3, right? But we're just taking it out of the,
Yeah, we could reference, so where we've got appendix 1 membership, we could just do town code section.
gotcha.
And the numbers, the comprehensive plan, we'll do whatever it's titled in the comprehensive plan. This section, figure whatever in this section.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say with the table.
Well, the zoning reference, they already reference themselves, so we'll just add the numbers, the town code section for membership, and the comprehensive plan, whatever figure it is in whatever section.
Table 16, and this, usually right before Table 16, it says, kind of the purpose of the list. These are the, in addition to the whatever, these are listed as just kind of a context of why we're,
I was also just gonna say, we could do a little intro paragraph for comprehensive plan that basically would state, if you were to look at the comprehensive chapter, you'll find X, Y, and Z, as well as this table.
great, thank you, that's all I was looking for.
We'll have the example.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for dealing with this as we've torn apart this document multiple times. I appreciate the fact that, yes, this is a complete document, so when, if another group has to if the council has to de novo look at our case, they can look at the entirety of what we're charged with reviewing in one spot. So, thank you for all your work on it.
And we'll just be there for, updating our design guidelines. Okay, so anything else on the bylaws, are we all okay waiting until the next month?
We'll provide those edits for next month.
Yeah,
Is that good? Okay.
sounds good.
So also up on the dais, you have a little bit of housekeeping. So you have the July minutes from when we were discussing the Haymarket Hotel demolition permit. These are the only minutes that have not been closed out yet for 2019. Marshawn, please help me out in this discussion.
I'm sorry, my kid's texting me, I'm done, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep.
Just help me out in this discussion because, Marshawn, this is one you and I had with Shelley. That's the only reason I'm saying that. I wrote the demolition section of the minutes, and I know you had an edit or two. So we had Kim go back and listen to everything, and we just want to close it out, see where it stands. And we did not see any of the motions that were incorrect that needed to be changed. And then the findings for denial, we did put in there verbatim because they were referenced in one, if not multiple, motions. So do you recall the edits?
The minutes weren't approved in August because, when they were presented to you, because you asked for us to go back and listen to the minutes.
Were these the ones that were submitted with the council packet?
Yes.
Okay, for the appeal?
So you're asking if these were submitted to the council at their August or September meeting? I do believe so, and we put that they were in draft format still.
That's what it was,
We
okay,
did not
that's what I was
put
remembering
that
what it was.
they were
They had not been
finalized.
approved yet.
As I remember, I think she had handed it off to you to finish.
That is correct.
And I had written text, and it was, the language in the motion had been paraphrased from what I had specifically read into the record. And so I had just emailed the verbatim motion that I had read at the time. It sounds like you've already done that in the italices. So if I'm able to double check against that, I think we'll be fine.
So I forwarded the email that you sent in, and
Mhm.
we was originally sent to Shelley, then I got it.
Okay.
Sent to me, so I did send that to Kim. Kim spent the better part of the afternoon listening to the motions and everything, and we couldn't find anywhere where more words needed to be added.
I'm sorry you had to go through that.
So I
All right, I just wanted,
we
I
wanted
just
to
wanted to
close
be
it
able to
out.
close out
Okay.
the
Yeah.
2019 with all the approved
Okay,
minutes.
if you're comfortable with that's what's read in it, then I trust your discretion, and I have no further.
Again, I could have gone back and I could have changed it back in the summer. We had a lot happening in the office at the time, and our software does not tell us the exact last date and who made the change, so I just couldn't remember, so we wanted to clarify.
So this is a conversation Emily and I had a couple times, is that if we're prepared with motions added, the best way to get it to you. I guess now would it be to have a copy and just hand it to you?
Typically, yes.
Okay,
Typically, when I do I do all verbatim motions.
okay,
So if paper, like tonight, she handed me this,
mhm,
I will also listen and type as I go. So, like last month, I already listened to the minutes and took the verbatim motion.
after you'd asked me to give them to you, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay, that's all right, I mean, that's.
They seem to match up, right? Okay,
But, yeah, so typically, like, on the COA for the porch,
okay.
I just go and look at what was put in Emily's report, and that's how I do the motion.
The idea of, I guess, writing and handing it to you is just to help you save time, especially if it's read directly, but if that's not of benefit to you, then,
If it's read directly, then from one that is, I prefer the something handed to me. But
Okay.
again, it's no big deal, I can just go back
help us help you, right?
And I would just say the rare occasion that we have a handout that's brought to us from one of the board members, it helps having it also electronically, because we're easily able to go in and upload it as an attachment as well, if need be. And I know that's rare, but, so if you happen to write up a findings or something, electronic or hard copy, we can always scan it in, but that's always helpful too.
Thank you. So I'm fine with status of the minutes.
Okay,
And you would still need to make
a
a motion.
motion.
Because those would be on the minutes that have not been.
So would you like to place this under vote?
Since I'm the problem child, yes, I will do
Okay.
that. I move that the ARB approve minutes from the Wednesday, July 24th, 2019 Architecture Review Board meeting.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and second. I think we discussed it enough. Last chance, though. Okay, we'll put it up for vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're good.
Thank you for getting that wrapped up.
Okay, we done with old business then?
We are, and Ayush was not able to make our work session last night, so for planning commission update, again, we just talked about the comprehensive plan, and I shared with you guys our homework assignment that we have for you guys as well as them, and then put out there that we're gonna try to meet on March 23rd at 6. So that's the only current update of the planning commission. The regular meeting was canceled because there was no applications before them.
Any questions?
On the planning commission update, no.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on then. Town council, I guess, since Susan's not here, you'll be the council representative.
All right, so we did have Van Meter SUP come forward. We had a public hearing based on some edits that they made to their proposed site plan, lengthy discussion, and eventually it ended up passing. Another thing we did, we added Chris Morris to the Finance Committee officially. And then what we did is we actually passed a resolution so that the town could join a town consortium, which essentially what it is, it's the town of Haymarket and 6 towns in Loudoun County are reaching out to trash service providers to try and get a cheaper rate for everybody. So if we can do one base contract and then we kind of add a little bit, so for like the town of Haymarket, we get a second pickup. Some other places need additional dumpsters, but if we can get that base price, hopefully everybody can get a cheaper price, because the market's looking like it's going to be a substantial increase due to recycling and things like that. There could be a significant cost increase, so we tried to get ahead of that and keep that cost to the taxpayer as low as we can. So that was a resolution we passed so that the town could join a consortium to work through that. So those are the 3 things we did.
Mr. Chairman, Susan did ask about the budget and the wayfinding. Did you need us to provide any feedback on that, or?
So we still have that in the CIP. Thank you for bringing that up, Marchant. Last night, also at the Planning Commission, we presented them the CIP, asked if they had any other changes. So what I did last year is I put in there for 2019-2020 a $15,000 ask for the design efforts of gateway signage, and then I put in 2 consecutive years of $35,000 each for buying the actual signs. So there's that in there. There's also some 2 other line items for post and panel gateway signs. I put in $16,000 for 2019-2020. We will be bumping this 1 year. We didn't get to that this year, so we'll be asking for the same things in 2020, 2021. And then I also put in there a National Historic Registry marker for $5,000. So I have those 3 line items in our CIP for the Budget Committee and the Town Council to look at and discuss. Were there any other items to add?
the building out back next to the, call it the utter back house, but
The little storage
the
shed?
storage shed is,
Okay.
where would we properly ask to get a window and a door? Because right now we have the wood over it. Is that in the CIP for town property improvements? Where could we put that in?
Probably maintenance,
Okay.
that'd be general fund.
Is that something, if there's consensus of the group, just, that was kind of a temporary fix, if there's a more permanent fix we could ask for so that it's,
And now, what are you asking, a window in the storage element?
so if you,
of
if you open the
the,
door and look out, it's just the one window, and I think
Feel
the.
free to open the door and peek your head out, so if you want.
If you want.
It's not
No,
over
go
the steps,
ahead.
right? This
Yeah,
is a
they-
storage area?
I mean,
It's
it's
just-
dark,
it's
but
an accessory building.
you'll know which, you'll have to unlock both.
So right now, the door in the, there's a door on this side that's boarded over, and then there's a window up top that's got a board over it, there's no window. It's not there, so do we want to ask that they go ahead and. What do you think, Chris? Well, we're off the mic, I'm sorry. So what we, for the record, what we pointed out was on the southern facade of the accessory building, the second floor window is boarded up. I believe the first floor door is boarded up. Would we want to recommend that the maintenance line item be used to replace those features? Is that the correct way to?
I think we can at least have it be brought up to the council to see what their thoughts are.
I mean, materials type, we can worry about that later. It's just
Exactly.
more of putting a line item in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, what we'll be able to do is we'll just say that AirBeat update, we'll just say that best that we investigate like that.
You want a motion for that, or just?
No,
Regular.
you all discussed it, so I think, we just want to report the update and say that, everyone's down.
And we're not looking at like an astronomical cost. What's that?
Request an itemized addition to the general funds,
Or general maintenance, or?
or,
It might be feasible to do it without any addition.
We'll leave it to your discretion on how that's accomplished. Yes.
Yeah, so what we'll do is when we, during the update, we'll just let council know this is what it was and try and move forward with that. Cause I mean, like, it's not like we're gonna just go and buy the first window. You're gonna have to reach out to contractors and get quotes for doors and windows and things like that, so it's not, it'll start a process, I think.
Let me just caveat that those buildings and doors, or those windows and doors have been replaced, so there's, I don't know if there's any interest in trying to do period specific.
Yeah.
It's just more of getting a fixture and a door in, so.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, one old business question I forgot to ask.
Mhm.
The Pardo House. Is there any way they can button up the plastic? Because now it's,
You're in my mind. I just sent Ms. Pardo an email
Okay.
yesterday. I drove by and saw that plastic came loose over the weekend, and we have a hole. So I've asked her to button it up, because we do have some rain that looks like it's coming soon. And then I also asked her to please remove all the debris piles in the backyard and get rid of those, as well as have the fence looked at that the tree fell on, whether it's on her property or her neighbor's, but to at least take a look at that as well. I also asked for an update on when the painting of the structure will be done and when the roof will be repainted. So I'm awaiting the response, but I will certainly keep you guys posted as soon as I hear more.
thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
great. And in the same line, see the wine tasting house. Put
It's
the
starting to set
foundation on the
settle.
porch in,
Yeah.
and it's starting to look good.
I make a motion to adjourn.
My second?
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned, 20 till 9.
Thanks, everybody. It was a good meeting.